think the most ordinary stuff would have the most boring history, right? Well, not even close. From a broken unwanted guitar worth $180 million to a Starbucks policy so bad it wasted enough water to fill a small country's swimming pools. I'm Mike with List 25, and today I'm counting down 25 uncommon facts about very common products, starting with a stick of chalk that helped bring down a city's parking enforcement in federal court. In 2019, Allison Taylor got a parking ticket in Saginaw, Michigan, and decided she wasn't letting it slide. Her issue wasn't necessarily with the $15 fine, it was how the police were handing them out. Officers were walking around parking lots marking tires with good old common chalk to track how long cars were sitting there. If a car was still parked after the 2-hour limit, give it a ticket. That tiny chalk mark ended up being a big legal mistake. Taylor sued the city, arguing that chalking her tires without her permission was pretty much an illegal search. The court agreed and ruled that since the police were marking cars before anyone broke the rules, and mostly to make money, not to keep people safe, it violated drivers' Fourth Amendment rights. She didn't get a payout, though. The case was about changing the system, not cashing in. And she succeeded. Now for something that ended up being a lot more costly. I promise, today's list isn't just a highlight reel of customer complaints. But when a product you love gets smashed, well, sometimes things get personal. Dave Carroll was flying United Airlines when fellow passengers spotted baggage handlers tossing luggage around. The men talked about their frustration, and sure enough, when Dave landed, he found that his beloved guitar had been wrecked. He filed a claim. United denied it. He complained, they ignored him. So Dave did what any good musician would do. He wrote a song about it. Actually, he wrote 3. The United Breaks Guitars trilogy blew up online, and United scrambled to apologize and promise changes, but the damage was done. All because they broke the wrong guy's guitar. Okay, let's trade guitars for popcorn. You might think microwave popcorn is just about heat and luck, but there's a secret weapon hiding inside every bag. It's called a susceptor, and it's that special small metallic patch glued to the bottom of the bag. When you nuke your popcorn, the susceptor absorbs the microwave energy and gets ridiculously hot. This helps the kernels pop faster and makes the popcorn crispy instead of sad and rubbery. Without it, most kernels wouldn't even pop, and the ones that did would probably taste like chewy disappointment. Susceptors are also used in microwave pizza and Hot Pockets. Basically anything that should be crunchy instead of soggy. And now you know why popcorn bags always say, this side down. Hundreds of years ago, Londoners were dropping like flies, and not just because of the plague. During the 1600s, officials kept grim records called bills of mortality, and bad teeth were right up there as a leading cause of death. People had no idea that the food they ate could rot their teeth or that basic dental care even mattered. Meanwhile, the ancient Egyptians had already figured it out millennia earlier. They invented one of the first types of toothpaste using some truly questionable ingredients like crushed ox hooves, ashes, and burned eggshells. They even came up with breath mints made from dried mint, rock salt, and iris flowers. Of course, not every invention worked after the first try. Take WD-40 for example. That blue and yellow can you've probably got stashed away somewhere. Its name isn't random. It's short for Water Displacement 40th Formula. Back in 1953, a group of chemists at the Rocket Chemical Company were trying to create a spray that could keep missiles from rusting. It took them 40 attempts to get the formula just right. The good news is that when they finally nailed it, the stuff worked so well that employees started sneaking cans home so that they could use them on everything from squeaky doors to stuck bolts. So it didn't take long for WD-40 to go from rocket science to household essentials, all thanks to a bit of stubbornness and a lot of trial and error. Another thing most of us use, and barely think about, is chewing gum. Up until the mid-1900s, most gum was made with chicle, a natural sap harvested from sapodilla trees. It gave gum that classic, soft, stretchy feel, and it was a huge part of the industry for decades. But by the 60s, companies started swapping chicle out for something cheaper, synthetic rubber. They made the switch quietly, without really advertising it. And today, almost every major brand still uses a rubbery gum base. It's one of those tiny changes that most people never noticed, but it completely changed what we're still chewing today. And it's actually one of the reasons chiclets are called that. And speaking of things that aren't exactly what they seem, did you know that portobello mushrooms are just fully grown cremini mushrooms? You'd think that would make them just as popular, but for a very long time, farmers wanted nothing to do with them. Their odd shapes and strange textures made them hard to sell, and most of the time they either got tossed or buried in stews where no one would notice. Luckily, that all changed in the 80s when a surplus of these mushrooms led to a rebranding campaign. The name Portobello made them sound fancier, and it didn't hurt that health foods were suddenly all the rage. Today, they're a staple on high-end menus and are often sold as mushroom steaks that can cost almost as much as the real thing. We all love strawberries, but did you know one company tried to trademark their smell? In 2005, a French company called Eden Sarl got the idea to lock down the scent for exclusive use in their soaps, clothes, creams, basically anything they could slap a strawberry label on. The European Union Trademark Agency thought it was ludicrous and rejected the application. But Eden Sarl didn't back down. They took the fight to court, arguing that all strawberries smelled the same, so it was fair game. The court didn't agree. They ruled that strawberries actually have 5 different scent profiles, depending on the variety. And, well, that was that. Fun fact, though, a Dutch perfume maker actually managed to trademark the scent of freshly cut grass, even though trademarks for things like raspberries, lemons, and vanilla got rejected. Trademark drama aside, convincing people to try new things has always been tricky. Take shopping carts. When they first showed up in stores in 1937, customers wanted nothing to do with them. Men thought using a cart made them look weak. Women said they felt too much like pushing a baby stroller. Either way, shoppers refused to touch them. But Sylvan Goldman, the inventor, didn't give up. Instead, he hired actors to walk around his stores pretending to shop with carts like it was the most normal thing in the world. And slowly but surely, real customers started following their lead, up to where today, shopping carts are basically impossible to avoid. Or buggies, if you're anywhere but the US. I forget who else uses buggies. Shopping carts here. Moving on. Dedication looks a little different when papers are involved. How fond were you of folding paper airplanes when you were a child? Some people never stopped, and along the way, they even set a few world records. Seriously. In 2003, Stephen Krieger folded a paper plane that managed to stay airborne for 63.2 meters, for about 207 feet. That record stood strong until 2012 when John Collins, a lifelong paper folding expert, broke it. Collins built the plane, but didn't throw it himself. Instead, he teamed up with Joe Ayoub, a former college football player who had the perfect arm for the job. They launched the plane inside a hangar at McClellan Air Force Base in California, and it flew an incredible 69 meters. Nice. That is 226 feet, 10 inches. Which brings me to another everyday item that takes way more effort than you'd think. Did you know artists still engrave US paper money by hand? Those detailed portraits you see on dollar bills? Well, whatever. Aren't printed with fancy machines. They're carved dot by dot and line by line. Master engravers use fine tools to create the original plates, and it's a massive amount of work. A single design can take months, sometimes even a full year to finish. And they can't afford to mess it up. Every line has to be 100% perfect because those plates get used to mass produce millions of bills. It's the kind of old school craftsmanship you wouldn't expect to still see today, especially on something as ordinary as cash. All right, enough about old school skills. Let's talk about what robots can do. In 2018, a robot called Sub1 Reloaded solved a Rubik's Cube in just 0.38 seconds, faster than most of us can even blink. It was built by engineers at Invention Technologies, who used lightning-fast motors, high-speed cameras, and custom software to pull it off. Apart from being an incredible feat of engineering, breakthroughs like this actually help researchers fine-tune robotics for things like self-driving cars, robotic surgery, and precision manufacturing. Not bad for a colorful toy that started out just teaching students about shapes and movement. But now let's get back to something a little sweeter. Have you ever cracked open a KitKat and wondered what's hiding between those layers? Well, it's KitKat. More KitKat. During production, any bars that come out broken, chipped, or just plain ugly get crushed up and mixed with cocoa and sugar to make the creamy filling between the wafers. It's recycling, but in one of the best ways possible. So technically, every KitKat you eat is built on the broken dreams of KitKats that didn't make the cut. I know that's kind of dark, but it's still very tasty. Now, if you've ever wondered why a roll-on deodorant feels weirdly familiar, there's a reason. The first roll-on deodorant, Ban Roll-On, came out in the 50s, and it took its design straight from the Ballpoint pen. However, instead of ink, it used a rolling ball to swipe liquid deodorant onto your skin. Same idea, just a slightly less glamorous end goal. The design caught on fast because it was cleaner, easier, and way less awkward than slapping on a block of solid deodorant. And honestly, it beat carrying around something that looked like a giant glue stick. But if you ask me, nothing can beat spray. It's easy and doesn't leave a mark. And no, this episode is not brought to you by Dove. This is what I used. I don't like the yellowness, and that's it. No, spray. Going with spray. Speaking of spray things that smell, we've come a long way since the time when perfume's sole purpose was to make you smell nice. Today, some are out there for nothing more than to scream luxury. One bottle of Chanel No. 5 reportedly takes 1,000 jasmine flowers to make, all hand-picked and packed into a few ounces of perfume. Clive's Christian Perfume No. 1 can cost a few £100 on its own, but things get wild when you start looking at the packaging. One version came in a crystal bottle with gold accents and a 5-carat diamond. Another was set with over 2,000 diamonds, because apparently subtlety was not part of their plan. And then there's DKNY's Golden Delicious. In 2011, they auctioned one bottle encrusted with sapphires, rubies, tourmalines, and diamonds for $1 million. You could also just grab the regular version for about $30, but your choice. Meanwhile, over on the practical side of history, why am I still holding this pen? Kleenex wasn't originally meant for runny noses or ugly crying. During World War I, Kimberly-Clark invented a super thin crepe paper meant for gas mask filters. It was strong, disposable, and, bonus, didn't cost much to make. After the war, they had tons of the stuff sitting around, and cold cream was having a serious moment in the 20s. So they rebranded the leftover material as a fancy new product for women to wipe off their makeup. It wasn't until a few years later that people started using Kleenex to blow their noses instead. Kimberly-Clark saw what was happening, changed their ads, and leaned right into it. Best accidental marketing pivot ever. And while Kleenex found a better use, other companies found brand new ways to waste resources. In 2008, Starbucks ended up in hot water over a policy that made absolutely no sense once the public found out about it. They had a thing called a dipper well, a sink that ran 24/7 in every store. The idea was that a constant stream of water would stop germs from growing on utensils. But the catch was that it wasted 6 million gallons of water every single day. That is enough to supply a small country. And meanwhile, places like Namibia were facing horrific droughts. Environmentalists and water companies alike slammed Starbucks, and experts called the whole idea nonsense. Eventually, the company promised to fix it, but still, 6 million gallons a day? That is a terribly expensive way to chase hygiene. However, wasting water is nothing compared to how fast some companies can tear through forests. IKEA might sell you furniture that fits in the backseat of your car, but the scale they're operating on is anything but tiny. The company uses about 1% of the world's entire commercial wood supply every year. That adds up to millions of trees being chopped down and turned into those famous flat pack boxes. To be fair, IKEA has promised to source more of its wood sustainably, and they've launched reforestation projects to try and balance things out. But when you're burning through millions every year, it's hard not to raise an eyebrow. On the bright side, you don't always need a giant supply chain to make life easier. Sometimes, you just need an onion. You might not be aware of this, but onions can actually clean rust off your silverware. If you've got some old knives or forks looking worse for wear, just stab them into an onion and leave them there for a few hours. The natural acids in the onion help break down light rust marks without any harsh chemicals. Once you're done, rinse them like normal and toss the onion. Unless you're into weird flavors. Onions can also double as a green way to clean your grill. Simply heat the grates, spray a little lemon juice or vinegar on it, and scrub them down with half an onion. It cuts through the grime like a champ. However, if you think scrubbing a grill with an onion is weird, well, wait till you hear what Sony did by accident. A few years ago, Sony released the Sony Handycam with a night shot mode that used infrared light to help you film in the dark. Sounds useful, right? Except, someone figured out that if you use it during the day with the right filter, thin, dark fabrics become see-through. Yeah, you can probably guess how fast that news spread. Sony had already sold about 700,000 units before they realized what was happening and tried to fix the problem by recalling them and slapping on extra warnings. By then, it was too late. The camcorders were already out there, and let's just say, some people didn't exactly use them to film birthday parties. So after Sony's little disaster, how about I tell you about a mistake that people actually loved? In the early 1900s, Coca-Cola decided they wanted a bottle that would stand out from all the other sodas crowding the shelves. So they asked their designers to come up with something bold. And one team thought it made sense to model the bottle after a cocoa pod. One small problem though. They thought Coca-Cola actually had cocoa in it. It didn't, but the design stuck. Those curves, the grooves, which don't exist on this one, the feel of it in your hand, it became one of the most recognizable shapes in the world. And it's basically still the same shape you see today. I think it's safe to say that Coke definitely made an impression, even if they had to do a little extra work overseas. And since I'm on the subject of Coca-Cola, did you know that when it first tried to break into the Chinese market in the 20s, they ran into a little bit of a problem. The way they translated their name phonetically, Coca-Cola, sounded fine to them. But in Chinese, it essentially meant bite the wax tadpole. Or, depending on the dialect, something even weirder, like a female horse fastened with wax. Not exactly the refreshing image they were going for. They scrambled to try and fix it, and ended up with Coca-Cola instead, which sounds pretty close, but actually translates to tasty happiness. Way better branding. At the same time, Burger King decided regular branding wasn't enough, so they added a spa. In 2016, a Burger King location in Helsinki, Finland made headlines for being the first fast food spot where you could grab a Whopper, sweat it out in a sauna. The place came with a 15-person sauna, 2 giant flat-screen TVs, a PlayStation, and a fridge stocked with beer, all tucked behind the regular restaurant. They even kept the whole place decked out with timber and stone to really drive the relax and eat vibe home. Renting the spa today will set you back about $270 to $350 for a 3-hour session. No, that actually does not include the burgers. But seriously though, a burger and a beer between sauna sessions? I don't know, I think that's kind of genius. Okay, now for the last uncommon fast food restaurant fact on today's list. McDonald's fries were advertised as vegetarian friendly for years after the chain switched to vegetable oil. But there was one tiny problem. They still used natural beef flavor in the seasoning. In 2002, the truth came out, and it cost them big. McDonald's had to apologize and shelled out $10 million to settle lawsuits from vegetarians, Hindus, and other groups who had unknowingly been eating fries seasoned with beef extract. And if you're wondering whether they fixed it, not really. As of today, McDonald's fries in the US are still cooked with a beef-flavored seasoning that also contains milk derivatives. So vegans and strict vegetarians are still out of luck. Closing out today's list, let's talk about a product that's a little less fresh than it smells. You know that fresh new clothes scent everyone seems to love? Well, it might actually be formaldehyde. A lot of dress shirts and cotton clothes get treated with a thin layer of formaldehyde to keep them looking wrinkle-free and mildew-free while they're sitting in warehouses or packed in shipping containers. Now, just in case you don't know what formaldehyde is, it's the same chemical used to preserve bodies, which is probably not what you were hoping to hear when you bought that new outfit. That's why experts say you should wash new clothes before wearing them. It's not so much about freshening them up, it's about rinsing off the stuff you really don't want sitting on your skin. And that's a wrap. Which fact surprised you the most today? Or is there one that you think should have made the list? Drop it in the comments below. I would love to see them. And if you're looking for more great facts after that, check out our related video, 100 Soothing Facts to Sleep To. It's packed with calming, interesting facts to help you unwind, chill out, and maybe even catch a few Z's if you're tired of counting sheep. And I have been told by many, many people that my voice helps them go to sleep at night. And I still don't know if that's a compliment or very boring. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because you know you want to, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new drop, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.